these Pan-Africanists were up to defeat colonialism and neo-colonialism. And in this path, they lost their lives, most of them very, very cruelly, were murdered in open streets by the colonial and neo-colonial masters. And of course, their main former and supporter being the United States imperialists and, of course, the European imperial powers. Pan-Africanist movement was something that developed especially by Africa's always remembered fighters like Kwame Nkrumah from Ghana, who was the first prime minister or president of Ghana after independence. Him was the person who always said, Africa, if we don't unite today, we'll never be able to throw away the heavy burden of colonialism and neo-colonialism from within our continent to defend our resources. And he kept on saying that, and he eventually was removed from his position by paid military junta within his army. They overthrew him, and they eventually, of course, he died in kind of an exile. With that followed afterwards in the Congo by Patrice Lumumba, who was one of the greatest Pan-Africanists. And he tried to take away this rich nation. The Congo is maybe one of the world's richest countries. It's got everything. It's got oil, it's got diamonds, name it, uranium, anything that you call as a mine is in the Congo. And the Congo will never be able to release itself from the anchors of neo-colonialist and imperialist powers because of its resources. And when Lumumba came up and said he is going to form a public government, a people's government, he was forced and pushed away and killed in daylight by the imperial powers, the CIA. And the CIA supported one of the generals in the Congo called Mobutu, and they made him the president. And of course, Mobutu was the yes man to their exploitation. And he went on and he ruled until he died. And the Congo is still the way it is. They have never been able to discharge themselves from the yoke of neo-colonialism. At that time, Ethiopia was the only free country, I can say, in Africa, and a few of African countries were coming up and getting their freedom by support of Ethiopia. Ethiopian Emperor Haile Selassie was, I can say, he is one of the premium Pan-Africanists. He formed the African unity at that time, which has now grown up to the African Union. At that time, it was the Organization for African Unity, which was encouraged by Emperor Haile Selassie, Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Toure from Guinea, and Tafawa Balewa from Nigeria. All these famous, and Bembela from Algeria. Few famous names. Actually, they came up and they made, at that time, the beginning for the foundation, they formed the foundation for the African Union. And all the African countries that were freed afterwards were helped during their struggle by the African Union, and especially by Ethiopia. Countries which recently were liberated, countries like Zimbabwe, which was the former Rhodesia, had a great problem to get off from this modern day colonialism, which was a proxy colonialism supported by the European powers. The few handful of minority whites formed a government called Rhodesian government, or Southern Rhodesian government. And they ruled the country with iron hand. They took all the land, everything. And at that time, Ethiopia was run by the Ethiopian military government, or the Derg. The Derg supported and trained 6,000 fighters from ZANU PF, which was then headed by President Mugabe, and then ZAPU, which was then headed by Joshua Nkomo. These two forces were trained in Ethiopia and armed and sent into Zimbabwe via Tanzania to assist in the struggle to liberate their country. And they did do that. They did liberate their country eventually. That was the contribution of Ethiopia as a Pan-Africanist country. Of course, Ethiopia has supported Southwest Africa, which is Namibia now. Ethiopia has supported South Africa proper by training and arming the ANC. And maybe the beginning of, before Mandela went to prison, he visited Ethiopia to be trained militarily. Of course, afterwards he was captured and then imprisoned for 27 years. So Pan-Africanism, the key country, the bright star that all African nations looked up for to fight for their freedom, was Ethiopia at that time. And it still is the mother of Africa. Ethiopia is the mother of Africa and will remain to be the mother of Africa. The white supremacists will have to be pushed out of this continent. And